Have you been curious as to why people do what they do? Have you ever wondered why it is that you do what you do? And what if I told you that discovering the answers to these two questions are the keys to unlocking success at anything it is that you want to do in life? I'm Brad Neufeld, and I'm excited to bring you this awesome model that I call the 10 Mindsets of a Winner. This is the beginning of the Ultimate Self-Worth Workshop series, and you're just starting Ultimate Self-Worth 1. And I'll tell you a little bit more about me in just a few minutes, but I want to tell you that this model is extremely powerful. I developed it about 30 years ago, and I've been working with people ever since, and I teach these principles, and it's amazing the stories that I get back and the miracles that I see happen all the time when people grasp the concepts of these and actually put them into their life and start working with them. But let's talk a little bit about what this will do for you. In this series, you will come to a greater understanding of why people do what they do, and also the importance of why you need to have that knowledge, and how to discover your talents and what it is that you really want to do. Most people never discover that during their life, but this is a critical piece, and I'm going to help you find that. We'll also show you how to increase your motivation and energy so that you'll have the tenacity to get through all those tough times that you're going to go through, which is why this next segment here of overcoming the challenges of life is so critical. We're going to give you some strategies on how to quickly and easily get through those challenges, and that will ultimately lead to you attaining your goals and your dreams. I'm Brad Neufeld, and I am the Resilience Coach, and I'm excited to help you any way that I can to help you overcome your challenges and to gain what it is that you want in life. And that's why I'm so excited to bring all of this to you. I just want to start by saying I've had a pretty challenging life. I've been supporting myself since I was 13 years old, and though I'm not going to share a lot of those stories right now, I will throughout this series, just so that I can show you that, hey, I've been there and I've done that. Because to me, that's the definition of a coach, somebody who's already been through it and can now teach you what it is that you need to know. Well, first of all, I want to start this series out by talking to you about a movie that many of you have seen. It's called The Karate Kid. And yes, this came out some 40 years ago. It's been a long time. But I think most of you have seen it. If not, you've seen the Netflix series Cobra Kai, which is a spring off of it. And so I would highly encourage you to go back and watch it. There's a segment in there where, I can just give you a little bit of a rundown of it. The gist of the movie is there's this young man. His name's Daniel. And he had to move from New Jersey to Los Angeles, and he was having a hard time fitting in. And he was getting beat up all the time, bullied, because the people that were there just didn't accept him. Plus, it didn't help that he was befriending this girl that happened to be the ex-girlfriend of a guy who was the leader of what they called the Cobra Kai at the time, a karate group. And they would always just beat the heck out of him whenever they saw him. And so he got sick and tired of getting beat up, so he thought, I need to learn karate. Well, after him trying to do it on his own, it just wasn't working very well. And he ended up going to a party one night where they were all dressed up in October. It was the October, so therefore it was Halloween costumes. And he played a joke on one of the guys there in that Cobra Kai group, and guess what? They came after him. And they beat the living snot out of him. Were just about ready to deliver what they called the death blow. And a gentleman named Mr. Miyagi in the show jumped over the fence, kicked the crap out of all of the other guys there, and saved Daniel-san. Okay, Daniel-san got the name from Mr. Miyagi, by the way. So then, the next day after Daniel was nursed back to health, he went to Mr. Miyagi and asked him, hey, will you teach me karate? And at first, Mr. Miyagi said no. He said, it depends on your reason. And Daniel gave him the reason, for revenge. And Mr. Miyagi taught him a great principle. If you want it for revenge, both of you die. There's no such thing. When you go after the revenge, both of you are going to get hurt. So therefore, he won't do it if he's going to do it for those reasons. Well, after a while, they came to an agreement and decided, okay, Daniel wants to do this so that he can gain back his his character and be able to be part of the school without being afraid wherever he went. So Mr. Miyagi agreed to teach him. But there's a key segment in the movie where he finally decided, all right, I'm going to teach him. But he knew Daniel was a little bit hot-headed and a little bit impatient, so he had to come up with a method to teach Daniel that he thought would work, because he knew if he pushed him too hard up front, he'd probably run off. So he did this thing where he said, all right, Daniel-san, we're going to do this training, but there's a rule here. The rule is you have to do exactly as I say and not ask any questions. It says, your duty is to learn karate. My duty is to teach karate. I say, you do, no questions. Well, obviously, that's not how I want our relationship here. I want you to ask all the questions that you want to ask. However, that's what Daniel needed, and the wise Mr. Miyagi, who was a coach, directed him in that way. And as you can tell from the movie, if you've ever watched it, it was the very right thing to do. So he teaches him all of these things. The first thing he does is have him wash and wax cars. That's where we get the infamous wax on, wax off from. And he said, you have to first learn how to do this, you'll be really good at washing and waxing cars. Then the next day, he has him come back, and then he has him sand his wooden floor, his deck that he had just built. And so he learned some new moves, but again, Daniel's not seeing that. All Daniel is seeing is that he's more or less being a worker bee for Mr. Miyagi and not really learning karate. He comes back on the third day and he has him paint a fence, which is up and down with his paintbrush. And again, at the end of the night, Daniel was so confused. He didn't know what he was going to do. He came back the next day. Mr. Miyagi wasn't there. He just left a paper on the door and a bunch of buckets of paint and some tarps and brushes, and it said on there, paint the house and go side to side, half with left hand, half with right hand. Well, again, Daniel's starting to get very upset now. But he does it anyway. And when Mr. Miyagi comes back from going out and going fishing, then Daniel, guess what he does? He goes off on Mr. Miyagi. He says, you're just using me as your, worker bee, and you're not doing anything. You're not teaching me. You haven't held up your promise. And so when Daniel was ready to quit, he starts walking away, and Mr. Miyagi stops him. And he says, Daniel-san, come here, has him come back. And it was at that point that he revealed to Daniel what it was he was teaching him. The wax on, wax off was how to block other punches coming in. The paint the fence, same thing. Sand the floor, same thing. Okay, side to side. And then Daniel-san got it, and he went through what we call a paradigm shift. Well, a paradigm, the word paradigm, means a way of understanding. So I know all of you out there listening to me today have experienced these. When there's something that you've been trying to figure out, whether it be playing a video game or learning how to spell a word or doing a math problem, one day you wake up and all of a sudden it snaps and you go, oh, I get it now. So Daniel had a big paradigm shift. He went from one way of understanding, meaning I'm being this guy that's just doing the things that this guy wants me to do, to he's actually teaching me karate. Big paradigm shift. Well, that's my goal here as your coach, is to give you many of those paradigm shifts. And guess what? As you go through this, you will. I can assure you of that. And so why is that so crucial? Well, let's start with this. Let's start out with this chest here. As you're looking at this chest, you'll notice one big thing. It has a big lock on it. Well, I'm here to tell you this. Imagine for a moment that everything you could ever want, whether it's money, fame, fortune, relationships, love, whatever it is that you're seeking, is inside this chest that you see right here. But that lock is a big deterrent. If you knew for a fact that everything you wanted was inside that box, would you do whatever it took to get the keys to that? That's a big question. How committed are you? Well, let's say for our example here, those keys are all the way on top of Mount Everest. And if you're not familiar with that, it is the tallest mountain in the world. Tallest mountain on Earth. All right? Well, it's not something that you can just go out and do in a day's time. It's going to take some time. And in many cases, it's going to take you getting into shape. It's going to take maybe paying somebody else to go up there and get them. Doing what you can to earn the money to get somebody else to take the journey up there. But it's going to take some time. But I always like to ask this question: what if it was going to take a year? Would it be worth it? Now, I'm not saying it's going to take any amount of time, or any particular amount of time rather, for you to get your goals and dreams. That's always different with every person. However, if you knew, let's go back to our example here, everything you wanted was inside that chest, would you do whatever it took to go get those keys? Well, of course you would. Well, again, as I stated right at the very beginning with the keys, I will give you the keys to help you unlock that chest. All right? Now, as we begin this, there's some rules that we need to go over. When I'm teaching these principles in a live setting, I always love it when I come to this part, because when I tell people there's rules, the body language is incredible. All of a sudden you see the guards go up. Oh no, there's rules. I hate that word rule. Well, guess what? This is a good four-letter word, because why do we have rules in life? We have rules to protect us. Because think about it. Driving. Are there rules out there? Oh yeah, there's lots of them. Stop when the light's turning red, go when it's green, stop at a stop sign. Do you realize if everyone obeyed the traffic laws 100% of the time, there would never be any accidents? Think about it. And yes, I get people, what if the roads are bad and all that stuff? Well, guess what? There's laws about that too. When the roads are bad, we're supposed to slow down. How many of us do? Okay? But keep that in mind as we're going through these. The reason we have rules are to keep us safe. And these are no different. The first rule is expect what you learn here to be different. This will be different than anything else you've been through. I can guarantee that. Because of the way this is presented. If I was just to show you everything up front, you'd probably look at it and go, oh, I've studied all this stuff before. But it's the way that it will be presented to you that's going to make all the difference. This is one of those wax on, wax off moments that Mr. Miyagi talked about. And I'll be doing a lot of that here as well. Wax on, wax off. I just need you to trust me. And which leads us to number 2. Be open to learning in new ways. Many times when we hear things, we immediately judge them. And so that's why it's important also for rule number 3. Delay your judgment while keeping that open mind. Be open that, what I've been doing up till now hasn't been working. We've all heard that saying that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Well, guess what? It's time to put all of that on hold. Delay your judgment here. Keep an open mind. Be open to learning in new ways. Be sure and give it a shot. All right? And number 4 is perhaps the hardest one to do. And that is, you may not like what I ask you to do. Just do it. But again, I'm never going to ask you to do anything that's against your moral beliefs. I'm never going to ask you to do anything that's going to hurt you physically. So with that understanding, I just encourage you to be open to the things that I'm suggesting to you. Number 5 is to be willing to stretch outside your comfort zone. And there's a reason why I say this at this point as well, because everybody has a comfort zone. And it's hard sometimes for people all of the different people that I've worked with over the years, to some people, the only way they can get out of their comfort zone is to jump out of a perfectly good airplane with a piece of cloth strapped to their back. Okay? Where other people, calling and ordering a pizza is outside your comfort zone. So I'm going to help you no matter where you are on that spectrum. But I just ask you to be willing to go just one little part past that comfort zone, wherever that is. Okay? Number 6 is be willing to share your oh wows. I guess I better start by explaining what an oh wow is. When you're learning these principles that I'm about to teach you, these are the common responses that I get from people. It's not just aha, it's oh wow, I've seen that. I've had that happen to me before. I see that happening with other people. They're oh wows. They're big epiphanies, okay? Big paradigm shifts, as I explained there during the Danielson portion, okay? Be willing to share those. Now, how can you share those? You can share those with people you trust in your own environment, or text me. I give my phone number out all over the place, so please text me, or you can get onto one of our podcasts and ask me a question there. But be willing to share those oh wows. This is very critical as well. Now, number 7 is be responsible, be wise, and be respectful. Now, usually this comes into play when we have a group setting, when there's people in there. Again, I like to create an environment where there is no judgment, where people can openly talk and discuss what it is that's going on in their life. And you will see that in our day-to-day podcasts that we do. That's just how we want to look at life. Everyone has different points of views, and guess what? We can learn from everybody. Everybody that comes onto our podcast, you'll be able to learn something from them. And you'll see it'll be a wonderful thing. But like I say, as you come on there, stop the judgments, stop the criticisms. That's just a big part of this whole process, because my goal is that all of us can win. And I believe that we can. I believe every human being on this earth can get the things that they want to get. Okay, number 8, be more curious and less serious. We have a tendency to get serious about everything, all right? But I'm going to ask you to, again, be open and be a little more curious. Maybe ask the question, what is this thing that Brad's trying to teach me right now? Could it possibly happen with me? Is there something in what he's saying that could possibly open a door for me to learn the things that I want to learn? So again, be a little more curious and a lot less serious. Number 9, participate and give 100%. Do the things that I ask you to do. Now, some of them are going to be a little challenging. And again, we want you to call in or write us or email us or whatever it is, whatever challenge that you're facing, so that we can help you on an individual basis, because that's going to be important. All right. Now, finally, and this is a big one, the more you give, the more you get. Now, I know all of us have heard that, and every major religion on the planet teaches that. However, I believe it's misunderstood. Let me explain. Because early in my life, when things were going well for me and I was earning money hand over fist, as they say, I just had the money coming in. I had a job that I was in sales, selling frozen food of all things, but I was on a commission basis. I was selling a lot of stuff, and I happened to be one of the top salespeople in my company. And I was raking it in, man. I had a brand new house. I had 2 brand new cars. My wife wanted to quit her job and to stay home with the kids, and no problem. We had plenty of money to save and to go on vacations and everything else. Well, it came to a point where I had heard this, the more you give, the more you get. And I thought, okay, well, let's test this thing out. I can help people. So when I'd have somebody come up to me and say, man, I just can't afford groceries right now. We're really struggling. I lost my job. And I'd say, hey, come on, let's go to the grocery store. Grab a couple of carts. Let's load them up. I can help you out. No problem. Then, a couple of weeks later, I'd have somebody, hey, I can't pay my electric bill. I can't pay my gas. I can't pay my house payment. Hey, no problem. I can help you out. Well, there came a time where I had a little bit of a turn, where things didn't go well for me. As a matter of fact, my job, the money I was making, got cut in half. And that happened because they reduced my territory, which again reduced my sales, which ultimately reduced my income. And I was in need. Well, guess what? I would go back and ask the people that I had helped. Guess who helped me? Nobody. What do you think I thought of this very principle that I'm teaching you right here? Yeah, I didn't think much of it. I thought, what a crock. I just don't see how this, people can believe in this and have things happen. Well, it was also around that same time that I started to realize what it really means. Okay, I'm putting it in a whole different context. Here's your paradigm shift. The more you give to developing your talents and your skills, you will be able to provide a service at such a high level that people are going to want your services and they're willing to pay you more. Does that make sense? You see this happen all the time with musicians. Every one of them, almost every one of them, start out with nothing. And what do? They have to develop their talent. Then they've got to go pay for instruments. How do they pay for the instruments? They usually go out and work part-time jobs to be able to get them. Then When they finally get all of that pulled together and they find some other players to play with, they have to go out and they have to do their shows usually for free. They do them in their neighborhoods, they do them in churches, they do them in dance halls. And are they making any money during this time? No. What are they doing? They're giving until they get to the point where they're producing music that people like. Then come the record deals. Then come the producing of their albums and all this stuff and putting it out there. That's when the reward comes. And it's always troubling to me when somebody comes to me and say, oh, those guys were just lucky. No, they weren't. They worked their tails off. They gave until things started to come. So the more you give, the more you get. Take the time to develop yourself. I want to give you one more example of why I know this principle here to be true, what I'm teaching you right now. When I was young, I wanted to play the guitar really bad. Matter of fact, Led Zeppelin was my big band that I liked. I loved Jimmy Page, and I loved his guitar playing, and I wanted to learn how to play the guitar like Jimmy Page. Well, I couldn't get a guitar when I was younger. Didn't have the money. And so that kind of got put on the back burner. Well, later on, as I grew up and started working and everything, I was able to afford a guitar, but that wasn't until I was 21 years old. When I finally got this guitar, I didn't know what to do with it. I learned how to play Mary Had a Little Lamb, just on the bottom string there, on the high E string. And it was just not going anywhere. But then I thought, okay, well, let me go take some lessons. I went and took some lessons. They showed me how the guitar was set up and how to work the fretboard and all that. And I thought, I got this thing, with these lessons, I ought to be able to do really good. Well, guess what? I couldn't put 3 chords together because I had a little bit of a problem. Showing you this, I've got really big hands, okay? And if you've ever played guitar with big hands, guess what? When you go to do, especially that D chord down there with fat fingers, guess what? It doesn't sound very clean because you've got your fingers pouring over to the other string and it's kind of muting it. And so I just had the hardest time with that. And as much as I practiced, I'd practice 30 minutes a day, 3 or 4 times a week, and all this, thinking, if I just put this time into it, I'll make it happen. Well, after a while, I gave up and said, okay, I guess I'm never going to be able to play. I also had one of my friends tell me, well, Brad, you didn't start early enough in life. All of those guitar players that you like, guess what? They started when they were 10, 11 years old. And so you've already missed your window. Well, that was discouraging too. But then I was listening to a gentleman in a guitar magazine that was being interviewed, and his name was Steve Vai. And a lot of you may know him. He's an awesome guitar player. If not, check him out. He's one of my heroes too. Because I had a friend of mine who came up to me and he said, when I told him the thing about the big hands, he said, I just went to a concert and I shook the hand of one of these, another famous guitar player, and he said his hands were huge and he was able to play. So that kind of gave me a little bit of a spark. But then when I heard the Steve Vai interview, that's what really turned things around for me. The interviewer asked Steve, how many hours a day do you practice? The answer blew me away. He practiced 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. In other words, it was his job. Holy cow. I had no idea, but guess what? Guess what overcame me at that moment? If I ever wanted to be good at this, I need to do what Steve Vai did. Otherwise, I'll never know if I can be good or not. So that next weekend, when I had time off, I went out there and started playing that guitar. I played for 12 hours straight. And guess what? I was finally able to put 3 chords together, a G, a C, and a D. And so that's most of the country songs out there are those 3 chords. Anyway, we can discuss that at a later time. But that got me excited. And then after that, I had that guitar in my hands all the time. Even when I got home, I would be able to just play scales while I'm watching TV. And anyway, it was starting to go quite rapidly. Well, 4 months after practicing quite heavily, guess what? I started to get pretty good. But then I wanted to go out and get a band together. And I just had the hardest time finding people my age that wanted to do bands. They wanted to do them when I was younger, but not anymore. By then they had families. Well, then one day I was playing my guitar and I got to be about hour number 6 on this one day. And something just came over me and it just said, you know what? I'm tired of playing the guitar. But I had to ask myself, is this something I seriously want to do for a career? Well, at that point, I came to a realization that no, it was not. But what did I learn in the process? I learned that if you put your time and effort into it, you can become good at anything that you want. Well, I can still play the guitar. Matter of fact, I'm going to play you a lick right now. All right, my friends, the stage is set. It's always important to have your stage all set up anytime you do any performance that you're wanting to do. In other words, get prepared. You are now prepared to learn these powerful principles that I'm about to teach you. And my hope is that you will embrace them, that you will look at them and say, how can I make these work in my life? In my opinion, they're pretty powerful. And they are things that people who have success in life, they're doing these principles consistently over and over and over again, and that's what makes them who they are. There is nothing here that I believe that you cannot do. So embrace them. I'm excited to get going. Well, here you go. Let's introduce your first key.